Morning guys and girls. So creatine, something that's increasingly popular now and trending for its physical and cognitive benefits. So it's going to give you a brief overview. So creatine is the most widely researched, well-known, widely used, probably cost-effective supplement on the market. It's been around for ages. Loads of different types, different benefits. Increasingly, the cognitive benefits becoming really well researched. So first of all, what is creatine? So creatine is used primarily in the body for energy metabolism. So the body produces energy through something called ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is a triphosphate molecule. In splitting that phosphate into a diphosphate, energy is released. Creatine is then used. Creatine donates a phosphate group to re-establish the diphosphate, to resynthesize it as a triphosphate, and thus making it able to release energy again. So creatine is used for energy metabolism, is an energy buffer in the body, and people who use creatine really report those effects, good for energy and good for recovery. The body produces it naturally in the liver, kidneys and pancreas from amino acids, and it's stored as phosphocreatine, so primarily used in ATP regeneration. You can source it from meat and fish. Something I'll mention later is if you're vegetarian, you should perhaps be supplementing on creatine. It's really difficult to source the amount of creatine you need in your diet if you're vegetarian, because it primarily comes from meat and fish. So benefits, the physical benefits of creatine are quite well known, especially for people who are operating at that high threshold of workload. So powerlifters, strength trainers, bodybuilders, sprinters. That's when the creatine phosphate energy system kicks in, that 85-90% threshold plus, and can operate for anywhere between 10 to 15 seconds. Research is showing anywhere up to about a minute, so relatively short periods of explosive power output. So really good for energy output, good for recovery, good for high intensity training. And you get obviously some cell volumization, so you can put on size quickly from it. Cognitively, so creatine can cross the BBB, the blood-brain barrier. The brain constitutes about 2% of the body's mass, but demands 20% of the body's energy. So the brain is a very energy intensive organ. And one of the energy sources of the brain is creatine. Recent studies have suggested that about the first 5 grams of creatine becomes saturated by the muscles. Anything after that crosses over into the blood-brain barrier and is used in energy metabolism by the brain. A really good research to show improvement in memory and reasoning and cognition, reduction in mental fatigue, having neuroprotective properties in the brain, antioxidant properties, and good for modulating neurotransmitters and hormonal pathways like GABA and serotonin, and also really good for sleep deprivation. Actually, I played basketball last night, I had about 3 hours sleep only, so I'm always buzzing afterwards, and I just loaded up 20-25 grams of creatine this morning, and I definitely can notice a difference. I have also had some coffee and stimulants, so yeah, perhaps not a very fair test. Different types of creatine. So the most common type is creatine monohydrate, which is one creatine molecule bound with one water molecule. You also get creatine hydrochloride, creatine citrate, creatine malate, creatine alkaline. So that's creatine bound with nitrate or malate or citrate, and the idea is then to make, as with anything you're putting in the body, is to increase its bioavailability. Creatine phosphate, we have done a creatine phosphate version, is a version that's stored by the body. Kre-Alkalyn, more alkaline version, is shown to maybe be a bit more gut resistant, so you get better absorption from it. Most common type is monohydrate. You want to watch out for the monohydrate, micronized. So we do, little plug here, these are our creatines fresh in. So the creatine monohydrate, micronized, but it has a 200 mesh count. So it's 200 times finer. A lot of creatines now are so widely used, the supplement market is so saturated anyway, you've got to be careful what you look for. A lot of creatines will say micronized, but not have a mesh count on, so they're not that fine. Ours is really fine, like flour. You mix it up, it dissolves, it doesn't really resettle. So people sometimes complain they get a bit of a funny gut from the creatine. You don't get that with ours. I don't anyway. The feedback from it is good, and you get really good absorption. Right, so dosing. Loading phase, you can do a loading phase for 5 to 7 days of 20 to 25 grams. That is basically to saturate the cells and the muscles more quickly and hit that capacity limit. Then a maintenance phase of 3 to 5 grams, or you can go by 1 gram of creatine per 10 kilograms of body weight. So I'm just about over 100 kilograms, so I go up to 10 grams of creatine per day. Like I said, anything over 5 goes to the brain. Research is pretty good for that. So if you're looking for cognitive benefits, I'll be looking at doing 10 grams, definitely. Anything even up to 15 and 20. Excess creatine is secreted by the kidneys in the form of creatinine. So if you take it, guys and girls, and go to the doctors and they say your creatinine levels are high, that's why. So there's good research also to show that as a meta-analysis, and over a period of 5 years, people are taking a high dose of creatine, so 25 to 30 grams per day. There's no adverse effects, and their creatine levels return to baseline after 4 to 6 weeks. If you are interested in this, I'd recommend the Diary of a CEO podcast with Stephen Bartlett when he interviews Dr. Rhonda Patrick, and she talks quite extensively about creatine and about its benefits in terms of longevity. You do get some water retention with creatine, a bit of a negative. I know women perhaps are less keen on that. So to mitigate the effects of the water retention, slightly counterintuitively, you want to increase your water intake just to flush everything out. Reduce your salt, your sodium intake, skip the loading phase if you're worried about holding water weight, skip the loading phase, and keep your stress down. That's a massive thing, isn't it? Stress now we hear about. Anytime your body is stressed, you go into this kind of survival mode and you will hold on to water, salts, fat. So reducing stress is always good. So should you be taking creatine? I would say if you're vegetarian, yes. Give me feedback, please. If you found, as I was a vegetarian for a few years, I just pretty much go now with veg and fish and meat. But yeah, if you're a vegetarian and you know you're able to source creatine sufficiently from your food, let me know, please. Anyone who's physically active or exercising regularly probably should be taking creatine. Strength trainers, bodybuilders, powerlifters, I'll be taking creatine. Anyone who wants the benefits of the cognitive improvement, I've just got my mum on it recently, the creatine gummies, because she's not so keen on the powder. So she was diagnosed a couple of years ago with early onset Alzheimer's. So I'm getting on the creatine, the krill oil, kind of a cognitive complex and stuff like that, just for its kind of neuroprotective benefits. And anyone who's just generally stressed in life has a high cognitive load. So there you go. There's a quick or not so quick little download on creatine. So this is ours. I'd recommend it. Have a good day, everyone.